Hello, Glenn. My name is Nielsen, and this is my Capstone project for 3270. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction before I go into the policing and justice class with Jim Bagel. I wanted to introduce my topic as cultural diversity, to increase awareness of judgments to cultural diversity, and specifically to identify the benefits of workplace inclusion. So judgments and inclusion lead to many negative outcomes, which can include things like workplace bullying, favoritism and inequality, high turnover or poor staff engagement, which increases morale issues, and low productivity and team performance. Loss of organizational knowledge is a big factor, and increased cost of recruiting and poor service quality. So some of the benefits of teaching students about inclusion and how they can be inclusive in the workplace would be improved corporate culture, better company competitiveness, and higher retention rates and engagement rates. So this is what my topic is, and I'm really looking forward to going into the class of about 36 students. My name is Nielsen. I put it on the board for you. My first name is a bit unusual. I hail from Saskatchewan, so I'm a big Riders fan. But before a ride breaks out, I just want to thank you all for letting me come into your classroom. I took the Provincial Instructor Diploma program here at TRU, and this is my final project. It's to come in front of a live classroom and practice some of what we've learned. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be here, and thank you, Jim, so much for allowing me to come in as well. So I'm going to talk about, the topic I chose for my capstone is cultural diversity. It's a topic I'm really passionate about. I've worked with all sorts of people over my very long work history. It's interesting, it's taken me to, I facilitated in an entrepreneurship school in Saskatchewan, the only privately owned entrepreneurship school. That was really interesting. From that experience, I actually started working with people incarcerated and recovering gang members. That was really, really interesting. Certainly diverse and different people from my own experience. I've never been an active gang member. I'm thankful for that, now that I know what their life is like. But it's taken me to really my career's taken me through some really interesting channels, and in front of people that I really had no sort of experience about their type of life. Another demographic that I've worked with is women entrenched in the sex trade. And again, I got a really different perspective and view into some of the lives that people live that are really, really terrible and unfortunate. From there, I've worked with the LGBT community, and they've supported a lot of my work in Saskatchewan. I'm very passionate about justice and policing. It's close to my heart. My personal life as well as my career. Today, when we talk about cultural diversity, my goal is really to have you all think about cultural diversity in the workplace. I am a BC career development practitioner officially in the province, and I'm really interested in people working together and groups of people working together. I notice that all of you are much younger than myself, and one of the benefits for you is that you have grown up and lived in a much more culturally diverse world than I have. And that's exciting, because to me, culture is strength. Culture is power, the diversity of people, it's power, it's strength, and it's knowledge. And so you're very, very fortunate for that. Some of the difficulties that come into play when an organization is not inclusive, it really affects things like productivity. I've got to refer to my list. Workplace bullying. That's kind of a power dynamic. So in my day, if you had the supervisor was almost sitting next to God up there, and everybody else was sort of considered a peon next to that person. I started my career in a mining industry. So very male-dominated, power-dominated, and money-dominated. So women were basically the peons in the organization. And that's where I started. So workplace bullying, I identified very early in life, is a power dynamic. If there's perceived power or real power, then there's potential for bullying. For example, if a manager is very, very passive and doesn't have the ability to be assertive and to set the ground rule, 100% you're going to have a workplace where bullying exists. So that's one type of inclusion. But some of the other problems that we run into when a workplace isn't inclusive is high turnover and poor staff engagement. If you know that you're never going to get ahead because you're my favorite employee and all the rest of you are not my favorite employee, that's really, really demoralizing. And we find that productivity and morale and all these things just drop right down. You can have companies that can produce much better and much more efficiently, but when that exists, things are flat and things are not happening to the capacity that they otherwise could happen. So low productivity, team performance, also increased stress. And stress is something that we experience in the workplace anyway, because never in the history of mankind have we ever lived in a workplace or a society that changes consistently the way it does today. So I buy a new phone, and before I know it, it's obsolete or I need to upgrade. I come from a publishing background, so my software has to be upgraded regularly to talk to my printer, layout and design person, all these people that are part of the team. And if you don't keep up and change that technology, you can't be competitive. And so this technology alone is driving the stress levels. I'm going to talk at the end of my presentation about the last generation that are still children. And with the invention of graphene, how many of you know what graphene is? Graphene is, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that graphene hit the marketplace about 5 years ago. And you know, have you ever seen the CSI shows where they have the computers in the air? That's the power of graphene. Graphene, the amount of information that they can put on the tip of a pin is equivalent to our biggest capacity computer today. It's going to change your world absolutely drastically. It's going to be exciting, but with it is going to come stress because there's going to be so much change, and especially with technology. So the benefits of inclusion in the workplace are improved corporate culture, better company competitiveness, and being able to attract the best people and retain those best people. And that, as young people who are going to be future leaders, is something that I want you to keep in the forefront of your minds. Because that's what it's all about with business, is finding the best and keeping the best. So, let's get started. Have you ever met anyone in your school life, in your home life, in your past life or work life that just rubs you the wrong way and you don't even know why? You know, you just see somebody got a couple of nods, you see someone and you think, really? Why did they do that? Why did they say that? What are they thinking? And you just don't get it? To be honest, how many people have had that experience? So if you've had that experience and you don't actually know that person, then I can guarantee you that cultural diversity is at play, for sure, 100%. So we're going to start by just looking at what is cultural diversity. So I'm going to ask for your input. When I say culture, can you tell me what comes to mind for you? And let's just do a call out. What does this word mean for you? What does it represent for you?
Grace.
Grace? Thank you. Did you say grace?
I said grace.
Grace, thank you.
Sorry.
I might be a little hard of hearing. I'm just getting over a cold. It's not because I'm old. Thank you. Race is absolutely part of it. What else?
Rituals.
Beliefs, thank you. And what was over here?
Rituals.
Rituals, thank you.
Customs.
Customs, big one. What else?
Food.
Food, yeah. Tradition, great stuff. What else?
Dressing sense.
Sorry?
Dressing sense.
Dressing. So your style, dress.
Style tone.
Yeah? Okay. What else?
Expression.
Mm-hmm. Expression.
Language.
Yeah, that's a big one. Language.
Habits.
Habits, yeah. Mhm. Background for sure. What else? Morals? Morals, that's a good one. Morals? Did I spell that? No, I think it's without the E. Please correct me if I'm wrong. What else? Should we go on to diversity? When I use the word diversity, what comes to mind?
Separation.
Mm-hmm. It's a great one. Separation. What else?
Difference.
Difference, yeah. Diversity.
Uniqueness.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Keep them coming. Just words that come to mind. And don't be shy.
Company.
Company. Did you say? Thank you. Good one.
Identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perception. Yeah, absolutely.
Society.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Any other thoughts? Diversity.
Religion.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
What did culture be on?
Mm-hmm. You can add culture to diversity, absolutely.
Racial background,
Sorry?
racial background.
Yeah, absolutely. Racial background, for sure.
Government.
Oh, good one, yeah. Recent election, there you go. Anything else? Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do next, just to broaden these two terms a little bit, I'm going to ask everyone to take a sticky. I'll just pass them down the rows here. Take a sticky and pass them back. And I want everybody to have a sticky, okay?
Thanks,
Thank you. Okay, there's more. Thank you so much. There's more folks on this side of the room, but this is the plan. Thank you. What I'd like you to do is I want you to sort of cross over the room, find one person that you don't know well, preferably. It's going to be a real simple and quick exchange, but I'd like you to sort of, because you folks are kind of sitting in close proximity, and you are, just cross over the room. I want you to find a partner. We're going to do this in pairs, okay? Don't be shy. Just go up and stand together for a moment.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Reese. Are you sitting down? Okay.
You're Okay, listen up. What I want you to do with your partner is I want you to discover one thing that you have in common. One thing. Hello? I have one more instruction. Sorry. One person is going to record the one difference. The other person is going to hang on to their sticky. Okay? No, that's okay. I'll get So one thing in common, you guys because it's right here.
Okay, beautiful.
One thing in common.
I had a girlfriend named Capstone. That was his
Okay, everyone. So the person that has the one commonality, I want you to put it here.
I'm going to bury it.
On the culture board.
Oh, of course, but he's not sitting higher than anybody else.
Just come up and stick it on the culture board, okay? Oh, wow, that is high. I saw that. That's so high, I can't even see it.
I don't know what you're
It's a one-way traffic. It's one-way traffic wherever I'm going.
Take your trash.
So step 2, everybody. Everybody got their common points on the board. Step 2. Some of you will have a sticky. If you need an extra one, grab one. I want you to find a partner, a different partner. Again, some of you don't know well. Go find a partner. There's a gentleman there looking for a partner. Just look right up.
Not us. Get out.
Just one person. Are you ready for this? If you don't have a partner, you just go right over and you get one. Okay? Everyone have a partner? Yes? One sticky note per pair. If you're a set of 3, you're going to do 2. And what I want you to tell me this time is one difference that you have identified. It could be a belief, it can be a value, but what's the difference that you can identify? Put it on the sticky and yes, that goes. This part's going to be a little loud. Oh, great, thank you.
partner? Who's your partner?
My partner is Evan. Why?
Political leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
One of those yeah, just throw those onto that board. Thank you very much.
I'm not affiliated with any party. So the stereotype beliefs, that's my thing.
Oh, thank you. Okay, the first thing I want to say is these stickies were probably made in a corporation that has very poor inclusion, because the quality is terrible. I'm just going to say that. But I wanted to review culture. So what we have here, both of them have a sister. So if I belong to a sibling group, and you belong to a sibling group, yeah? We belong to a culture of people that have siblings. If I look at one likes avocados and the other doesn't, oh, that's going over here. Wait a minute, that's a difference. If I start to read these hockey, so sports, hockey players. In Saskatchewan, they all wore the mullets, you know, the mullet hairdo. And it's a culture, it's a very strong culture. So if I belong to that group, then I belong to a hockey culture. Lululemon, design. If I'm a really strong supporter of that brand, I'm a Lululemon supporter. I belong to that culture. Music. One is shooting. Casket? What's casket shooting? What is that? Oh. See, I'm only 5'4". There was one way up there. Okay, target shooting. If I do that, if I'm a hunter, if I'm a sports person, you see what I'm getting at. California girls, east side, west side, music, heavy metal or classical, all of these things tie us to a culture that we belong to. And as human beings, what we naturally do, I'm a Ryder fan. How many Ryder fans in the room? Thank you. Do you want to be my new best friend?
Sure.
We gravitate to those that are like us, right?
Sorry, I'm part of that over on.
We gravitate to those that are like us. And in a workplace, that's the biggest mistake that companies make. Again, if you can belong to a workforce that is really diverse, you are going to have a powerful and very efficient workforce. If you belong to a workforce where everybody thinks the same, wears the same clothing, does the same activities, it's going to be flat. You're not going to be as creative. You're not going to be as strong at problem solving than you would with people from different minds, different backgrounds, different cultures. So culture is much, much broader than just our ethnic background or our language. Some of these differences are religion, born in a different culture, tattoos, political learning, height differences, pizza topping differences, food differences. What is this one? I like mushrooms, but Emily does not. Well, there you go. That's a big difference right there. Favorite color is red and blue. So there's a lot of food. Here's pro-hunting versus against hunting. So you see that differences really include everything that we think, we believe. And they're influenced by, largely, culture, but also our family and the people that are significant to us, the people that raised us up, whoever those people are. We get a lot of these beliefs and values from those people. But society does sort of dictate generationally what many people will buy into. And I'm going to start with just an overview for you to get this conversation going. From 1922 to approximately 1945, we call this generation traditionalists. They're also known as the seniors, the maturists, the forgotten generation. These were the folks that came back from the war that ended. They came back, and their values were really, really different than every generation after that. They valued one job for their lifetime, security. They had to have good jobs to make money, to rebuild the country, to rebuild the entire, everything, rebuild the entire society, I guess. So these traditionalists there's only about 3% left in the workplace right now, and most of them are offering consulting services. One example is a lawyer that I know personally in Winnipeg who consulted until he was 94 and a half years old because he had so much knowledge of the law, I guess, community in Winnipeg, that he literally provided that knowledge to that part of the labor market till he was almost 95 years old. So you're not going to see many of these folks, but their values are going to be really, really stringent. They're going to be savers, value their career. They just went to work, people told them what to do, and they did it. And that was that. The Industrial Revolution, there are stories of people falling in vats of fat because there was no safety. But they went to work because that's what they had to do to rebuild these nations that we have the privilege of living on. They just went to work. There wasn't a lot of safety. There wasn't a lot of complaining. You showed up and worked, or you basically starved to death. There wasn't an option for them. So they're very strong in their beliefs, and certainly in their work habits. So then after them came, do you know the name of this generation after?
Is that the boomers?
Yeah, you got it. Big onslaught. All of the men and the women come back from war, and a ton of kids being born. Those are the boomers. So the boomers got a lot of influence from the traditionalists, but they did what every generation does. They rebelled a little bit against those traditions. The boomers are very career-minded, though. Career, if you're working with someone my age, it's a career. We're actually going to stay in the workplace longer than the traditionalists did because career is so important to us. We have many careers, and we'll keep working at our career right until we're probably asked to leave. When people start saying leave, that's when we'll go. But boomers really value their career. Next after them comes what we would call, I would say 1961 to about 1980. Does anybody know this group? Yeah, this is the Gen Xers. So these folks right now are in their late 30s to mid 50s, and these are what we call the latchkey kids. They have a casual disdain for authority overall. They don't like being micromanaged, and they don't like that hands-on management. They want hands-off. They wanted the freedom to be able to do what they wanted to do, and the freedom to just do the job the way they felt it should be done. Almost 40% of this demographic is going to dip into their retirement savings for non-retirement activities. So they really enjoy to have fun and live in the moment. The boomers are probably more set up for retirement, but they're going to work well into their retirement. Those traditionalists, they had a big nest egg for their retirement because they put in all those years. So then after this group, from about roughly 1981 to, now this is where there's a bit of controversy. I'm going to go X, so generation X, Y, and Z. So this generation, I've got it here. And just know that this is about average. It's not precise. But there's a little bit of a wiggle room here. This is about 1980 to, I'm going to say, about 2000. because 2000, the turn of the century, is where they coined this Generation Y, or the millennials, or the post-millennials. There's a bunch of different names for each one of these groups. Generation Y is known as Generation Next, or the Echo Boomers. And this generation was known as the 13th generation, or the post-boomers, but there's a bunch of different names. But this generation was significant at the turn of that century. Everyone was worried about technology, because they'd never, when they developed the computer, they'd never anticipated this turn into the 21st century. So they were worried that we were going to lose data. And all of us were at home, like saving our data on those, you know, those big square disks, the floppy disks. That's what we were doing New Year's Eve, because we didn't know what was going to happen. So this generation is really a huge shift, because the Z generation, they were really born into technology. And again, this is really, I don't want you to get too hung up on the numbers, but let's say they go to about 2009. So you see the difference here. We can take this back to 1995 to here. It's more about the influence on society. These are the techs. They're the youngest generation. How many of you belong in this generation here? So you really are significant for the next generation that's coming around. And these are some of the things that they're saying about the post-millennials, is that you've been coined as having less focus, but you're way better at multitasking. That you are bargain shoppers, that you're early job starters, and that a lot of you are really strong entrepreneurs. That you have and will work globally, more so than anybody above you. So you've been virtually playing games online with kids from all over the world, maybe, in your teenage years, and conversing with people from all over the world. It's not really a big deal to have friends all over the world. You are really considered the last primarily white generation, because 48% of you, and I'm just going to get the statistic correct, 48% of your generation represents as people of color or multicultural backgrounds. So really, this is going to drive some really significant differences for the next generation, which is Alpha. They kind of ran out of the alphabet here. So Alpha is the next group. And the Alpha kids are born 2010, and they're going to take them to about 2025. So your technology knowledge and experience is going to highly influence the Alpha technology, or the Alpha generation. The other thing that's changing drastically, this is from the Pew Research Center. They say that your generation is going to be the best educated and the most diverse, like I just said, but that these lines will continue to blur in two areas. The home and the life lines, the home and the work lines, these are going to blur. So you're going to be working at home, or perhaps from different locations all over. You're going to be traveling more and working, not from a traditional office or even from home, but your work will be part of what you do. And that's something that each generation has been pushing toward, but you're going to actually do it more successfully. Also, the lines of gender identity are going to be blurred. And even now, there's a larger percentage of 15 to 20-year-olds that don't identify as being attached to one gender or another. They're already starting to blend this gender identity, because the thing is that people are going to be viewed as people, regardless of race and color and sexual orientation and religion. People are going to be people. And the exciting thing that's coming is that you are going to be judged in the workplace on the skill set that you provide. The other thing that's going to disappear are job titles. So it's going to be more about what you can do for company ABC versus I'm tied into this job title and this is what I need to be. You don't need to be that. You're going to develop unique skill sets that you can deliver to a variety of companies. And that's what's going into these later generations. I've got a video that's going to describe a little bit about alpha, and you will be working with these folks for sure in your lifetime. But the introduction of artificial intelligence, which is really gaining, it's one of the quickest growing sectors in our research and development, overall, artificial intelligence. And so I'm going to give you an example of that later in my presentation. It's really fascinating. So these are some of the things that divide, but also things that we want to be cognizant of. The activity that you did where you were meeting people that were similar to you and different than you, the reason for that activity is because once we get to know people, we find one thing in common. That sort of breaks down barriers to different religions or all these differences here. If I find something in common with one person in this room, it's going to break down diversity or difference. So how many people are on the planet?
Like 8.6
7+ billion people on the planet. And I have a choice. Between those 7 billion people, I can say, you're nothing like me, I have nothing in common with you. Or I can say, there's one thing that I can find in common with you. When I do that with another human being in business, that's money. That's money and that's success. When I can find one connection with another person in business and in the workplace, that really improves the outcome of any business, anywhere, anytime, any day. So I want to give you each a handout here, and I'm just going to have you do a really quick project working together. I'm going to pass these around, and while I do that, I'm wondering if you could start counting 1 to 4, and I'll start with you, because I really like Captain America, my grandson's favorite. So you're going to start us off with 1.
1, 2, 3.
And then we'll start again. 1,
3,
and again.
4.
no.
2. So, I'm going to go group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. You're gonna take over the whiteboard. Group 4 there, group 1 there. Wait a minute, time out. I got a better idea. 1, 2, 3, and 4 to give you a little more space. Okay? And I just need to clear this board really quickly.
Yes, babe.
Are you here? So what group is this? Thank you so much. I'll just get rid of these stickies. I kind of want to keep them for my own research. There you go. Okay. So there's some marking there.
Why not? Yes, Gen Z is going to.
Okay, everyone. So this is what I'm going to task you to do. Group 1, you get the boomers. 2, you can get the Generation Xers. You can ask me. I'm a boomer. So Gen X is number 2. Y is group number 3. And Z is group number 4. This is all I want you to do. Because you're all young and I know that you're going to be in a position of leadership, supervising, and management, possibly entrepreneurship. I don't know. I just know that you're going to do some great things. And you're also going to have to deal with these alphas. So what I want to do is just looking at the groups here. I do plan to be around for a few more years. Many of the colleagues of mine that are boomers as well are saying the same thing. We're not really in a rush to retire. We're having a lot of fun and enjoying what we do. We want to stick around. So you'll be working with some boomers, definitely, Generation X, Y, and your own generation. All I want you to do is put your beautiful minds together, come up with some solutions for what do you think is going to recruit a boomer. I'll use my example. How are you going to retain them? What would you and how would you train them? And what kind of workplace culture would you create? It doesn't have to be a whole list of things. I just want some ideas. If you want to use your smartphones, please do so. But just give us all an idea. So each group will be responsible to educate everyone else. Just a couple of ideas about how are you going to advertise a job for a boomer? How are you going to train a boomer? What kind of culture? And I'll give you even a couple of leaders. So when we're thinking about, I'll start with culture. So workplace culture, I want you to think about leadership. What kind of leadership that organization is going to have that will fit well with the value. Kind of values, wellness, and attitudes. That's what a work culture is. It's made up of values and wellness, leadership, and attitude. The retainment part, how are you going to pick the best and keep the best? So how are you going to get the best? Sorry, I'm in trouble between my brain and my writing. So get the best and keep them. For recruitment is basically those advertisements. So where are you going to get them from? How are you going to attract them to the company? Think of job ads. Where are you going to find these folks? And training is really about what is it you're going to have to teach them and how are you going to teach them? What tools will you use for teaching? So teaching tools. Does this make sense? Are there any questions before we begin? Another one with retainment is how are you going to motivate your employees? Are you going to have a bunch of employees that are undermotivated and morale is low? How are you going to motivate them and get them excited to grow your business or to make your workplace the best that it can be? Pull out your smartphones if you want. Just give us a couple of ideas. I don't have a smartphone.
My phone's with that, guys.
I think for baby to really get their attention.
Well, you know, sometimes that's for the best.
Otherwise, I feel like
Do you have any questions at all?
I'm gonna try to.
What group are you?
So
you are
the Gen X.
You're Gen Y.
Gen Y.
oh, I thought that was color.
Yes.
Bold and bright.
We're figuring out how to
Is this for like ads?
retain
The Y generation is
For job ads?
think about people you know, your family members. Think about what, Gen X is in their early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the year that they were born, approximately. You're right, yeah.
Too much olive, so no training. So we take them all to
But
Well, they're born We're supposed to start training, I guess. I'm train.
we'll go back to that one.
I'm trying to generation.
All entrepreneurs work with organizations.
There's just so much going on. Okay, I think for attracting for job ads, Gen X. Colorful, bold and bright and straightforward.
Comic Sans.
So those Gen X is basically late 30s.
Very easy to understand. Straightforward. Yeah, very straightforward.
Colorful?
Colorful, bold, bright.
A lot of.
And use your smartphone.
My elementary school was a lot of.
They don't like the little stuff.
Don't coach watching at you right through.
I'm embarrassed.
Training for me.
For you.
So
was right.
Right for Christmas.
How are you? Gen Y.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Do you have any questions? Let me know.
How are we motivated? Yes.
Rachel, girl.
I bet you they would enjoy like community events, like
Benefits.
That's right here.
No, like-
Is that probably good?
Dentist stuff.
Okay, how are you guys doing here? Are you ready to present your ideas to the class?
I think so.
Excellent. How about if I give you another minute, will you be ready?
Good boomers, they really like wine. Put that down. Christmas party?
you can put like what would it be if it was like a
And you're doing great here?
like
We don't know. You're doing great.
the rest of
sharing
it, and then
ideas.
the rewards can be like personal rewards or like team rewards. That's like really making that work.
So we'll just do a wrap up.
So then they can have like, oh, you guys can help me to vote.
Give everybody another minute or so. What if you've got your thoughts? That's great.
Get out of the way.
Yeah? Are you ready?
Where's the talk?
Are there any groups that need a bit more time, or are you ready? Can you wing it?
We'll wing it.
No?
We're
You got a yes and a no? We'll go with yes. Okay, so we'll give you a couple more minutes. Who would like to go first?
We'll go first.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Alright, here's our beautiful ideas. So we've got the boomers. Jobs and recruitment, for the job ads, colorful, bold, straightforward. So something simple, easy on the eyes. Recruitment, benefits, so healthcare, health benefits, dental, all that. Community involvement, so parties basically involved as their own little community. For the workplace, little to no technology, they don't like that.
That's my dream workplace.
Fax machines, those are very clear.
They're so
Little to no directions, so they like to be on their own. Give them a task, let them get it done, leave them alone, kind of thing. Training, simple and straightforward, high repetition, hands-on.
That's so true, especially for boomers. Like if it's anything with technology, simple, repetition, hands-on. Thank
We
you.
got you covered.
Thank you.
And then-
I'm gonna come work for you.
For retainment, rewards like bonuses, team rewards, so Christmas parties, holiday parties, anything like that. Anything that can make them feel involved in the workplace as a group.
Fantastic. Yeah, you did a great job. Really, that's very bang on. We went for a company trip down to Vancouver last year. That was one of the best things for all of us boomers. We loved it. So that's very true. Thank you. Take note, because you will be working with us. Who's next? Who would like to be second?
We'll do it.
Thank you. Well, what do you got?
So we are Generation Users,
Mhm.
and for recruitment, we put billboards, TV commercials, social media sites such as LinkedIn, Facebook. Someone else want to do one?
Yeah, that's very good, yeah.
For training, we put that it's like a mandatory training, but it's slightly more independent, like including modules and programs, rather than just having someone lecture at you. We're going to organize education, but it's very structured.
Yeah, that's bang on.
You want to do the last one?
For attainment, we said that the Gen Xers are probably people that would want a livable income to probably support their family. They want something structured, set work hours, so not something that they get called up in the middle of the night and say, hey, we need you guys to work this graveyard shift. Set work hours, you know, maybe I gave the example of teachers especially, come in the morning, leave in the afternoon, you get summers off, all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Consistency, you get pension and good benefits, obviously for retirement and all that. And not strapped in / permanent, give them a promotion or transfer. So it's not, you know, they don't stay the same for their entire career, like maybe the world would want, you know, you come to the job, you're there for 30 years. But then again, you don't want massive changes, you maybe get an upgrade every once in a while.
That's a good idea, yeah. I think that would really be attractive to that generation, yeah.
And then workplace leadership, who else wants to do that?
Was that one of the categories, because it was on the board, workplace leadership?
Yeah, workplace, and how would you lead, and what thoughts do you have? Anything about the workplace culture?
Just let them, like, they're pretty similar to the boomers, I believe that would be their parents, so
Yeah.
very, very independent, slightly more technology based. They know the job that they have to do, they come in, they do it, they go home.
Yeah, that's bang on, yeah, really good. Good job, thank you. Who's next? Somebody at the front side.
I guess we're next.
Oh, over here.
We can go. So we got the Zedders. So as far as recruitment goes, like social media is very appealing, stuff we see when we're browsing online, often associated with like money. Money's a big factor in everything we do because the cost of living is so high. We look at like, we don't want to work forever, so we gotta look at our benefits and our pension that comes with it. And then we want like exciting recruitment. So for a job fair, it's not just, hey, how are you, this is what we do kind of thing. Like there has to be like distractions for us all around that intrigue us to go to this one kind of thing, right? As far as our training's kind of broad. It's not just we sit down, we look at the desk, this is what we're learning and we learn it. There's so many different areas where we can divulge or diverse, I guess, yeah, that's a different word, different areas. But yeah, we just do everything in a different way, and then paid training, so we're there and we're getting paid to do something, expand our knowledge.
Yeah.
It's active, like I say, it's not just sitting at a desk, we're out in our field, we're getting experience doing whatever it may take. Collaborative, so we're in groups, whether it's connected through face-to-face conversations or through this world of social media that we now have. In the workplace, kind of ties into the training as well, as it's not just we sit at a desk and do this, is we have broad definitions of what we can do and where we can do it. Again, collaborative, where we can work with others, could be across the world, not necessarily sitting at the same desk as we are. It's very encouraging, and then it's a more diverse group than all the other generations. And then as far as retainment, job security, and not only meaning like once you have a job you can stay in it, but once you get into a job there's so many different areas that you can pursue underneath that title, that you can just continue to grow. Same policies apply for everyone that's employed by the company. Again, they're kind of losing the sense of entitlement for whatever it may be. And then again, a collaborative environment where everybody works together regardless of where or how they do it.
Yeah, that's really good. And I can see as you're talking about how those job titles become less influential, and it's more of a collaborative environment where I can do many things. And that really is attractive to that generation.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful, thank you. Good job. Loving this. Last but not least, we have the front borders.
Okay, so for recruitment, we had more social media influence, because like job advertisements were more on Facebook and not really like newspapers and stuff. We didn't really use those. And mostly like on television and just like social media was very like a big thing there. And for training, it was more hands-on and technology, like doing like online training instead of having like sitting in a classroom and doing that, yeah. And dealing with the left and right side of the brain. For workplace, we're more innovative and we keep up with the times, and technology is the main factor in communication. So like emailing, texting, and all that. For attainment, it's really like a lot about money nowadays, because like prices are so up than they used to be back then. And more days off and vacation, raises, promotions, and benefits and salary.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, this generation, you have the last one, right? The youngest? Which one are
We're
you?
the
Or
millennials.
why?
Oh, the Y, yeah, and you were the Z, right. And that's where, I really see this, like, when I first went to work, my first job, I was making more money than my dad. We had a different, and the younger generation, this is so important, the money, the benefits, the salary, the sustainment, getting the house. A lot of these things will factor in. And what you said about, that communication it's all about, go meet, everything's go meeting and all these online meeting places and texting. Professionals never text. Oh my goodness, never think of that a few years ago. It's really changing. But you do have a lot of challenges for your generation as well. So I want to show you a couple of things. I want to show you about the artificial intelligence, specifically when you were talking about the training going, virtual or online. That's one of the fastest growing industries in the business world is online training, and it has been now for the last over 10 years. So pretty soon it'll all be online. But I thought maybe we could let's start with let's start with what this looks like. Sure. If you want to play it, and if you want to have a seat and watch this, sure. You all did a great job. Thank you so much for educating us, giving us some really important things to think about.
Whoa, I know.
So I'm just going to tell you a little blurb about this company, Virtual Reality Simulation Training. I've been following this company for 2 years, and they've advanced critically in the last 2 years.
Just too much.
It is, we're learning about it, so let's see if we can find 2 things that you learned yesterday about those. Savannah, what's one thing that you learned about photosynthesis?
The leaves like taking light.
So let's see, so building on that, Deb, what would you like to add to what Savannah had to say?
This is K-12.
Heidi, you on your cell phone, would you please put that away?
Yeah, I can put your phone away. It's totally not me.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I'll go ahead and take care of what you say.
Thank you, Jim. So you've got to go online. There's a whole host of a variety of simulations in teaching. I can see policing adopting some of this. I know in real life.
Teachers often use technology in the classroom to help.
I can see policing using that technology because they're testing the user's response to really difficult and unexpected situations. And so they put these teachers, these beginner teachers, in front of a virtual class, and they get the kids to act up, the virtual kids. And they have to resolve it. They're using this in counseling. They're using it in HR. So if I'm going to be leading a company, before they hire me on, they put me in front of a virtual, employee or someone, and they give me a hard time, and I have to resolve that in real life. And depending on my performance, they'll hire me or not. So you're going to see more and more of this virtual simulated type training. It's really fascinating. This is a really quick clip on Alpha Kids. Like I said, they're 10 and under, but these they did the study of 8,000 parents across primarily North America and UK. And this is what some of this information is really interesting. I just wanted to show it to you. Thank you so much, Jim.
My name is Saul, and I'm like 7.5. I have like this math thing. It's called Zern. I do it on sometimes my phone and my PC. Most of the screen time I have is on my PC. I don't really like to watch movies, but I like to watch a lot of TV shows. I'm going into like older ones, like ones about science. I watch 3 or 4 different shows on Netflix.
I have been playing video games since I was 3. I do enjoy playing video games, but it's more of an addiction.
I saw them on YouTube. I like to buy stuff I see on YouTube.
Sometimes advertisements on YouTube pop up. I don't think I've seen anything on the advertisements that was really worth getting.
What would you want to do for a job?
Play the adult games on Daddy's phone. I'm gonna be an airplane driver. It's not it.
When I grow up, I want to be a graphic novelist because I draw a lot. I prefer to draw normally on paper, but I prefer to make animations on a computer. I don't use my parents' phone because I kind of have my own. That's just for like games and stuff.
I would rather have an iPad rather than a dog.
What pets do you have? Do you have a dog? What, Fred? So you try to have a conversation with them and they're on technology. Just can't.
Anyway, just thought I'd give you a little introduction to. I was thinking these children may represent your own children one day that are so into technology. Honestly, I would have to say at least 7 years ago, when the biggest selling product was the baby monitor that they put on the car seat. I mean, it's something we can't stop. But the most shocking thing, I'm glad that I got a response about the little boy that says I'd rather have an iPod than a dog. And that these children, overall, their technology knowledge surpasses that of their parents by age 8 or 9. These alpha kids are really interesting. They're calling them alpha, born 2010 and later, because of the launch of iPad and Instagram. But their influencers are people like Greta Thunberg, the young activist for the environmental, I think it was Greta. No, she's not the river girl. Greta's the one that's got she's got international recognition for her campaign on climate change. And she started this when she was, I think, 15 years old. She's going to be a major influencer, but even Stella Bowles, she had to do a science project in grade 7, was very uninterested. So she decided to pick a science project on her town's river. And she got 3 levels of government to clean up that river. She was 11 years old. So these young activists are really going to represent this generation. They're going to be smart. They will be the wealthiest generation across the board. But they're also going to experience more health conditions because of their sedentary lifestyle, because they are doing so much time on technology. They will populate Mars and the Moon, and they will co-live with advanced artificial intelligence, as you all will. So what will you do in your future to include and go with this? It's a little mind-boggling, but like I said, with the introduction of graphene, and if you research graphene and some of the inventions that are going to come about in my lifetime, you'll see much more of that than I will. It's really fascinating stuff. So again, I thank you for your participation, for all of your work, and for including me in this evening with you. I really appreciate it. And I just encourage you to be as inclusive as you can in your future. It's really unknown, and it's really unpredictable. but to be inclusive in your workplace by simple things. If somebody prefers to be called he or she or referred to as they, you know, these are just simple things. Instead of asking someone, what does your wife do? What does your partner do? You know, instead of making an assumption that both people are working or that, you know, maybe the woman is working or the man is working, to just leave it open, because your workplaces are going to be very, very different than today. And so try and constantly be thinking about how not to block somebody into a response that doesn't represent them. I mean, work families, it's going to be very, very different. You know, I started out where women were just entering the workplace, and now we see both parents. But they say that alpha is going to go back to those traditions. There's a very strong cursors that are pointing more toward one parent staying at home full time again. So it might look very different than it does now. So thank you very much.